brother, why? I voted for Biden. Okay, dude, you were there through the Obama years. Why on earth did you vote for Biden?
Uh, you know, I actually thought that, aside from all the other stuff, the crime bill stuff, that because of the lesser two evils thing, that had he probably would make a good candidate. Um, I don't. I know this is probably bad. I don't technically remember what his stance was at the time, but his policy on certain things, or his stances on certain things, not necessarily policy. I agreed with him at the time, and
Okay, just so I can be sure here though, because you literally just said, "Well, yeah, I mean, the thing about crime, how is it you just what was it you told yourself that allowed you to dismiss that?"
the crime bill thing.
Yeah, the crime bill thing, like three strikes, like two of them. One of the, what, 85 and 95. So he came to bat twice and hit the baseball bat over Negroes' heads. And you gave him a pass for that. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what was it you told yourself to rationalize it, to dismiss something like that?
Well, I didn't do the research, but I'll say this: I did some time in the Marine Corps, and I was in law enforcement for a little while. So in my mind, I just but
Oh, boy.
but in doing the research and in looking into the background of the things, the same thing with Kamala Harris in California, and how she put, I think it was like 70% of the black women that were in prison was because of her. I had to really do research, and that was a mistake that I made. That was a mistake on my
Okay, now, did you say you were in law enforcement? Now, were you in military law enforcement or civilian?
civilian.
Okay. Um, where you live at?
I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay. Even at your age, though, because you're 30, you said you were 37.
I'm 37.
Okay. Even at your age, like I say, it is a little bit of a stretch. I will say that it's a little bit of a stretch, but even at your age, though, brother, I guess for some of y'all, you might be a little young. So I'm not going to put that too. I'm not going to try to overstate it. But you all can't dismiss things like that. You can't sit up here and be completely ignorant of history, especially recent history. You
Well,
know that's not a minor thing. To be dismissing there. That's not a minor thing. When we're talking about recent history within your lifetime.
I was going to say a lot of that also was I wasn't following you at that time, or the other Tariq Nasheed, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of my information was hanging around, unfortunately. I'll be honest, white folk, uh, the good liberal white folk, and I'm gonna catch flag. I'm gonna catch flag from you from that too.
Yeah, but
But
here's my thing. Here's my thing though.
but
Beyond that, you would have been born in like what, 85?
84.
Okay. So 10 years, you would have been 10 years old by that time. Now, I understand to a certain extent, I can only I can have some leniency because, the crack epidemic kicks off in the 80s. It's rolling full steam by the time you get to the early 90s. And Bill Clinton and a bunch of other folk are using that to do all kinds of things. By the time we get to the 95 crime bill, you already had 85. Now you get to 95's crime bill. And even though if you weren't living in Los Angeles, the thing was the crack epidemic hit everywhere. I mean, that hit everywhere. So yeah, it starts on the West Coast, but I mean, it goes all the way West Coast to DC. Shout out Marion Barry. So there wasn't really anywhere that wasn't affecting. So I'm just like, do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got two older sisters in their 40s and
Oh, but no brothers though.
no brothers.
Okay. So like I say, if they didn't get you, if they didn't let you know that, even though you were young at the time, yes, you'd be like 10 years old. But then again, there were a bunch of us who, were in adolescence and we were watching this and we didn't dismiss that. That wasn't really something you could dismiss like that.
I, I got
That was a super major event. So, because all of us know somebody, if we didn't get sent to prison, we know somebody who went to prison because of the three strikes. We know how that changed everything. We know how they used that thing like a sledgehammer everywhere you went. So that was impossible to get away from. And then it's more insulting because now that you got the opioid epidemic, all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we don't need to lock anybody up for drugs anymore." And it's like, well, I'll be damned. For 25 years, that was the policy: was we lock everybody up for drugs. Now that it's time to mass incarcerate white people, all of a sudden, drugs are now a public health issue and not a crime issue. But yet they're not letting any of the public health people who got locked up because of the three strikes laws. They're not letting them out of prison, or the fellas who are selling. By the way, because that's the other half of this thing. You can use all you want to, but you can't sell it. That's interesting. So, like I said, what that tells me is, yeah, certainly you probably didn't have a lot of exposure to a lot of things that the rest of us saw. This is why it is so important for cats like myself and for a lot of you older cats. This isn't the time to be cooning and buffooning. This isn't the time for that. This is the time to be taking it dead ass seriously. You have to take this seriously now. We have to make sure that these younger fellas, and by this point, we were talking about the guys in their 30s, they got to be ganged up. Just the difference between being 10 years old and 15 years old makes all the difference in the world. If you were coming up in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, the difference between being 10 years old and 15 years old, what you saw or what you were experienced or exposed to could be worlds different from somebody else. One of y'all is watching Sesame Street, the other one might be listening to NWA at that point, and they will be totally oblivious to what Biden was doing and what he was a part of. That wasn't a minor thing. The reason why the three strikes law was such an egregious thing was because it was very clear who it was being targeted at and who it would be used against. And the evidence is clear at this point. White folk got to plea bargain their stuff down. Black people didn't, which was the entire point. The white folk who got arrested, you can go watch Cocaine Cowboys or whatever. The white folk who got arrested, they got to plea bargain theirs down. Black folk, by and large, they had to walk it down for the ones who could. So you see Big Meech, Rick Ross is an outlier. Everybody else, if they didn't have anybody they could tell on, they could walk their sentences down or spend the rest of their lives in prison. That was a fundamental change in the way in which business was done. And we understood that that was going to be used to entrap a bunch of people, a whole generation like that, a whole generation. And what I'm saying is, it didn't take a genius to figure out that when it is time to mass incarcerate, they were using that against black people. And if society ever changed in some weird way where it's time to mass incarcerate white folk, we knew it wasn't going to be the same thing. They were not going to go in there and go grab up all the white males and put them in a big ass bullpen, and then that was going to be it. And that isn't what happened. So that's why you got Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton now talking about, oh, well, there was unintended consequences. There wasn't unintended. We knew this then. We were talking about it then. It happened exactly the way they expected it to, which is why you're still seeing the same thing now. So for you younger fellas, please understand this. That wasn't a minor event. That was a super major thing. I guess I'm gonna have to just chalk it up to, we gotta do like the Jews with the Holocaust. That's something that black folks need to do. Jewish people were very, very wise about the Holocaust. They understand people are quick to forget. You give them a year and they're watching Leave It to Beaver and moving on. We don't need to let America move on. America needs to never move on from slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, lynching, um, mass incarceration. We can never allow America specifically, or the world in general, to forget what was done, and more importantly, who did it. Because the architect of three strikes is sitting in the White House today. And in an absolutely diabolical turn, the guy who wanted to lock everybody up for doing drugs is now saying, oh, by the way, need a free crack pipe? Need some heroin? Need a safe place to go get shot up at? This is white supremacy 101. I'll let you have the last word.
Um, So what I was going to say was you're correct. My upbringing, I'm probably going to lose points for this too. Both my parents were Mormons. They
Oh
had
boy,
converted, yeah, in the late
you were
70s.
one of you were one of those.
Yeah,
Okay.
only black people in the whole church, man. So, you know, ignorance is, like you said, especially with the youth. And I was probably 10 or 11 years old, but I wasn't exposed to any of those things. Now, the other parts of my family that lived in California and in St. Louis, Missouri, they lived in bad neighborhoods. And I remember specifically being extremely young and going to the neighborhoods in St. Louis and not being able to hang out with younger cousins because of where they stayed at. I was only allowed to stay in Bridgeton, Missouri, which is 30 minutes away from St. Louis, nicer area, with an uncle who kind of did very well for himself as well. So it's important, like I said, up until this point, 37, man, 36 years old, I wasn't really exposed to your channel, to the Tariq Nasheed channel, to anything. Actually, a friend of mine, he was showing me, I think there's this thing called Clubhouse, and people were talking about, you know, your show or something like that. And then I added you on YouTube. So it is important that we, even at my age, learn. And I got an 11-year-old daughter, man, and we kind of bond over this stuff now. So that we don't have this next generation like me going ignorant all the way up into 37. And I land with that, brother. Thank you.
Thank you very much for speaking to us here. Let me get Glenn John. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. What's on your mind?
To answer your question, well, I never did support Biden. I put it in, I tweeted it here a few minutes ago that from the very beginning, I voted for Trump both times, right? Because he wasn't a politician. I'm not disappointed with what I did then, or I'm still not. But a lot of people they were on. Hey, what's wrong with you voting for Trump? I'm like, shit, he's not like all these other people in there that's screwing you. Um, in '94, right? I shot someone in self defense. I'm from Oakland, and Kamala at the time was the DA. So I knew just from when there's no way that I was going to support her or him. Simply because of that fact, and what I said previously that Biden wasn't. I mean, Trump wasn't a politician. That's why I basically would never vote. I definitely wasn't voting for Hillary. But that's basically all I had to say.
Well, so what do you think about Biden's plan now, though? What we're talking about here tonight. We're going to be handing out free base pipes or an equivalent to be able to get smoked up. How old are you, Glenn?
Well, I fall into that category, what you call one of them old niggas, but I'm not one of them that can't be trusted. I had a spirit of a 20-year-old. Once I grew up once again in Oakland, right, and used to eat at the Black Panthers Temple right there on 27th and West. So I had to listen to him every day, and it kind of made me militant at a young age. I'm 61. I'll be
Okay.
62 in April.
All
You
right.
know.
So, unlike the young fellow who just got off of here, you and I both remember the crack epidemic. We
Oh yeah.
remember it from the beginning. Like I was a kid at the time, but even in Shreveport, Louisiana, where I was from, I'm just saying it started in L.A., but dude, it moved quick. It moved from California fast. I'm
Oh
talking
yeah.
about within a year or two. It hit California, and within a year or two, brother, down in Louisiana, it was on and going. It was on and going. I remember as a kid about that. So we had crack fiends, crack houses, whole blocks. You can go look up things. Operation Thor. There was a bunch of things they had down there, busting drug dealers and whatnot like that. So it was a lot of that going on. So we remember what it was like with the crime bill in '85, crime bill in '95, and the difference. So you were from California.
Right.
Let me find out from you because what was the effect of the three strikes law from your perspective out there?
Once again, I was they were trying to give me 15 years for a self defense thing. That was the deal, and I didn't accept it. I took it to trial, and I lost the trial, but they still gave me 15 years, but I had to do 50% of it, and once I got out, they had me on parole, 3-year parole. And I had got a couple of little DUIs, right? And every time I would catch a violation, I would do a minimum of 11. I did 11 months, and 12 months. And they were trying to strike me out, but man, it's horrible. I hate thinking about it. I still suffer from some of it today. You know, um, and like I said, I knew how Kamala Harris was. I know how she is. Right now I live in Menlo Park, and I was at this facility. I'm not sure if you ever heard of it, HVRP. It's in Menlo Park right now. That's just when Biden and Harris were having their little Democratic convention in San Francisco. I actually did go down there, well, up there rather, and I wanted to speak. They wouldn't even let me in the building because I had some things they kind of asked, they were kind of like asking different people certain kind of questions. And I told them what I was going to say. If I got in, they would not let me in.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen right there. But what you raised a good point, which is what I was trying to say to him before here, is that you remember when they were on the House floor and the Senate floor, and three strikes was being sold as a tool that was going to go after drugs and violent offenders, drugs and violent offenders, violent offenders. And, oh, it's crack wars out here. It's drugs and violent offenders. Next thing you know, is going after anything.
Yep.
That all of
Like
it was sold to us one way, and when it actually got in their hands, it was like, oh hell, we can use this for anything, and they
yep, and
did.
that's exactly what they did. And like you always say, they sent it straight to the black community. I've grew up all over Oakland. I've lived all over Oakland and Berkeley and Richmond and Antioch, San Francisco, all over the fucking Bay. I've lived all over the Bay, and it just didn't stop, in certain areas. It's everywhere. It still is today. I'm legal. I can drive. I have insurance. I have license. Man, I hate to see the police every time they get behind me. Because it's just, it's still. I've been out. Well, I've discharged in '03. That's what 20, however many years ago, and I'm still
19.
suffering from what could possibly happen. You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's a hell of a way to do that. There, y'all got shoot up sites out there too now, don't you?
Oh yeah, in San Francisco they've been had them in Santa Cruz. They've had them. I don't know why they just starting to publicize it. It's nothing new. It's just been around forever.
It hadn't been around since the '80s and '90s. It hadn't been around
Uh,
since then.
well, I was incarcerated in the '90s, but
Yeah.
they had, I think it was it
I'm sorry,
was,
you was out the scene at the time, but yeah,
you know,
it's like I say. Now that it's time to mass incarcerate people, now all of a sudden, now this time to mass incarcerate people, and you got a few black people in some places where they could actually use these things. It's kind of like South Africa when the white government wanted to the white government had nuclear weapons, and before they turned over the government to black folk, they got rid of their nuclear stockpile right before black folk take power. It's like, okay, well, we don't want a black nation that could have nuclear arms. Here in America, now that it's time to mass incarcerate white people, all of a sudden, okay, let's decriminalize this. Well, we ain't gonna give you that kind of ability. So, like I say, that's if you all want a really quick lesson in how racial warfare works, that's how it works. That's what it's like. That's what it does. And older guys like you and me, by the way, we need to make sure that the next generation is fully aware of what happened and who the villains of this story were, and
the
that many of them
government,
are still out there. Well, I
the
mean,
government.
government is a good umbrella term, but we got to name names. Jewish people name names: Eichmann, Ehrlichman, Goebbels, Himmler, Hitler. They name names. We got to make sure we name names. We can't just say the government. We got to
Well,
name these. We got to make sure that it's got to be like America's Most Wanted. We have to be able to name exactly who it is and what they did, because otherwise, if it just becomes the government, it's just this big amorphous thing. We have to be able to pick specific targets and let them know this is who did it and this is why. And then going forward, when they see other people imitating that behavior, now they know exactly what to do because they've seen it before.
yeah, well, it goes back a little further. With half of them that started this crap are dead. Reagan, the Bushes, both the Bushes, and even Obama. I was kind of happy to see the guy in there, but you know, cliche, he didn't do shit for black people, and now people are finally starting to realize it. But to answer your question, what would I do with the pipes that Biden have? Give them all to him and let him smoke the motherfuckers till he have a heart attack.
Oh no, him and his son will be in there getting blowed. They'll be in there getting blowed, and then
uh,
like, okay, but then next thing you know, here comes Kamala. Can you imagine her getting sworn in? Boy, out of the frying pan into the deep
to the
fat
fire,
fryer.
man.
Wouldn't that
I
be hell?
already
Out,
know.
he's like, okay, well, Biden's gone. Then you see her sit up there because I can see it now. You all don't know some of the stuff that happens with me behind the scenes. You don't know some of the things that happens behind the scenes with me, but I'm just letting y'all know. Kamala has sent me her wishes. That's all I will tell you. Kamala has sent me her wishes. She has let me know that she's a fan. That's all I say about that. I'll let you have the last word, brother.
Well, that's it. I just want to tell you, I really appreciate your show and the business. I listen to both of them faithfully. I've been listening since like 2015, and I never miss it. I never really comment, but be one, brother. You take care. Love to all my
Likewise, thank
black
you very
family. Not
much.
no coons.
Appreciate that.
All
Appreciate
right.
that. Thank you very much for
Uh,
joining us here. Well, to everybody listening here, like I say, definitely be aware. It's one of those situations, going forward, we need to make sure that the young folk understand this. History is being erased all over the place. Texas, Tennessee, and I'm just naming those: Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Oklahoma. They're rewriting the history books and they're rewriting the ancient history. And then if we're not telling them about recent history, stuff that has happened within their lifetimes, if we don't put it in this context, you got your children walking around out here willfully blind. You're letting them walk around willfully blind because you want to believe that there's something you can buy into. And they're sitting out here sitting ducks. He's walking out here and whatnot. Well, I voted for Biden. Why did they give me a life sentence? Oh, they give my white friends 4 years. They give me a life sentence or a plea deal, but they gave me a life sentence. Well, yeah. And then we supported and go for it. There's a whole bunch of folk who voted for Kamala Harris in California. Whole bunch of folk who voted for Joe Biden after you saw the 85 and 95 crime bill. And we keep explaining these things away. Meanwhile, you're letting other people get treated differently. If anybody wants to speak about this, though, you can go ahead and throw your hands up. I'll go ahead and get to you. I'm asking real simple, by the way. Do you support base pipe Biden? Do you support old Jim Crow Joe Biden now? It's well, let me get you out your free drug kits. You can let me. There's no money for reparations. No money for that. He's against that. Nothing. By the way, him and the Democrats, because this is the Democrat Party, by the way. We're not interested in that. There's no money for reparations. No, none of that. But we could fund your drug habit if you need it. Let me see. Path of Justice. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Yes, you're
Okay,
on.
thank you, Jason, for taking my call again. This is Ben again. I call it again on Sunday, so I'm not trying to violate your rules. But I just want to say thank you for doing everything. To me, what I was most alarmed was I feel like the general community that we have has been fairly unresponsive to this, and to me that was more alarming about how few of our people I think are willing to fight. I feel like the Black empowerment circle is very reactive to this and very negative towards it, of course. But I think our community as a whole has been alarmingly silent. So I guess my take was that we as Black people who are serious need to, I think, focus more on ourselves. I know awakening our people is important, but I'm not saying a lot of our people are lost cause, but we have a lot of lost cause out here. That's just my opinion.
Well. Let's dissect that for a moment. Like the young man I was speaking with here before. First of all, you got to understand there's a huge education effort that needs to be done. For those of us in the new black media, we've kind of undertaken that as not kind of, we've undertaken that as our job because that's really, if you're relying on CNN, you might as well go ahead and put the shackles around your ankles now. If you're relying on them, if you're relying on the corporate white supremacist media to sit up here and inform you properly, then you might as well go ahead and sign yourself up for a life sentence and just save them the trouble. So, in reality, this is a huge education effort. This discussion doesn't happen anywhere else. It's not happening at the schools. Hell, the schools are rewriting history as we speak. It doesn't happen at the churches. The churches is just Creflo Dollar and TD Jakes, so forget about that. You went from Dr. King to Dr. Pepper, basically. Your HBCUs aren't doing it. The HBCUs aren't doing it. If you're interested in transgender studies, they got your back. But as far as dealing with these things, no, the HBCUs are checked out. If you're in a state college or state school, well, forget about that. And even your entertainment media, they make movies about these kind of things and TV shows about these kind of things for everybody else. But when it comes to us in particular, who have an immediate grievance against the society and whatnot, all of a sudden that gets thrown away. So just understand there's a huge education effort that needs to be done here. How old are you, Path of Justice?
I am 37.
Okay, you're the same age as the other caller was. So, and where do you live at?
Decatur.
Okay, Georgia.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, like I say, the epidemic hit Atlanta too, as a matter of fact. So you'd have been about 10 years old when when the 95 crime bill, we got to differentiate the two. When the 95 crime bill hit, you would have been about 10 years old. Do you remember the crack epidemic hitting down there?
Well, I'm actually from a smaller city in middle Georgia, so I wasn't in the midst of that. There was my dad's side's on the Columbus side, so I definitely saw a lot of that floating out around there before even the crime bill hit. So, uh,
And then when you keep in mind that they brought the damn drugs here. And there's the
yeah.
first thing about it. It didn't just get here in its own. They brought the drugs here. They made sure you had everything you needed so you could kick it off. So they created an epidemic and then locked up a bunch of people for it. So for those of you who are young, we got to remember time is slipping into the future. So for those of us in our 40s, 50s, or 60s, we got to let these cats, even as late as their 30s, know what was going on and exactly who it was. Because if you're there in Georgia, like I say, you got Newt Gingrich, who was working hand in hand with Bill Clinton at the time. So if we don't make it clear who was doing what and what it was and how it really happened, this is how history repeats itself. This is how you can have a 37-year-old black male call you up and say, yeah, I voted for Biden. Well, I heard about the crime bill, but I didn't really think much of it. It's like, whoa. That would be like Arabs talk about, we heard about 9/11, but we didn't think very much of it. We didn't think that was a big issue. It's like, okay, well, you think they bombing Iraq and Afghanistan and Egypt for fun? No, it's no. This is a major thing in that regard. So, for those of you in your 30s and younger, we got to make sure you all understand the ins and outs. You can't just sit up here and memorize all the fictional characters on the Book of Power. And meanwhile, out here in the real damn world, you don't know who any of the players are out here. You don't know who's doing what. And Joe Biden has been here the whole damn time. And the problem is, yeah, Reagan died. Tip O'Neill is dead. A bunch of the others are dead. But a lot of these people are still here. It's like Emmett Till's killers. The woman who sat up here and accused Emmett Till is still alive. Emmett Till's been dead for decades, but she's still alive. And other groups of people would not give that a pass. We have got to make sure you all are properly educated so that you aren't walking around out here walking side by side with the demons of yesteryear, walking side by side with them and voting for them and supporting them. I mean, that is just a cruel irony. It really, really is. We're talking about who these demons are. And meanwhile, the 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds are sitting here taking selfies and photobombing pictures with the guys that we've been trying to fight now for 40 years. I'll let you have the last word.
Well, thank you again for all the education that you bring us in the day-to-day commentary and the future projections you do too. Jason, the only thing I would add is I agree with you about the historical context. My godmother was a history teacher and my mom was a teacher, so we would go to all these museums. And I was talking to my brother the other day that we went to this museum in Virginia and learned that, these early white colonies failed and they even, they did cannibalism. So I was surprised even at the age of 25, 30 that a lot of our people didn't know that. So I understand it's important. Maybe I'm just losing patience. But again, thank you for all your work. Take
No,
care.
we can't lose patience though, brother, because it's not about people who don't want to do any better, we don't have to worry about them. And we're not here to quote unquote save the world. But there's a significant number of people who, once they hear it, it's in the back of their heads, they know something is wrong. And the chorus has been getting louder and louder now, particularly over the last decade. So what we need to do is make sure that we're persistent about that. We don't have to worry about the old folks who have bought in or just waiting for a quiet death. And we don't have to worry about the cowards who are looking to hide or the divestors who are looking to opt out on some crazy fantasy that they can achieve some other than black status. Our job is to make sure that the people who are on the same page have a place they can gather. Now that we've done gather with like minds, now that we've done that, we can move on to the next thing. Thank you very much for giving us a call here. I'm going to be on here for just a little while longer. So if anybody wants to speak here, you can go ahead and do that. Really quickly here, the article from the Daily Mail, I wanted to just go down a little bit because they were talking about this. They were talking about how Jen Psaki, by the way, I know Roland Martin hates to hear her name. Roland Martin thought he was going to be White House press secretary so bad. He thought he was going to get a deputy White House press secretary job so bad. I know he's mad as hell today. Every time he has to see the name Jen Psaki, I know he just wants to say, that old wench. Look at her sitting up there. In any case, it said, now a spokesman for HHS did not reply to a follow-up question asking for an explanation on the discrepancy between the comments of the Free Beacon and the follow-up statement. So you can read the article if you want to. It's on my Twitter page. However, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki blamed, quote, inaccurate reporting. The crack pipes were never a part of the kit. It was inaccurate reporting, and we wanted to put out information to make that clear, she said. HHS said that the kits will serve to limit the risk of infection. Typically, users smoke out of glass pipes, which can lead to cuts and sores that become infected with diseases like hepatitis C. Handing out pipes is also intended to prompt users to smoke rather than inject themselves with some substances like meth, as injection is far riskier. Applications for the program get priority if they serve, quote, underserved communities such as African Americans or Native Americans or LGBTQ people. So, folks, Joe Biden, I think this is Joe Biden's sick idea of reparations for black people. So black people said we wanted something specifically for us. We still ain't got anything specifically for us. But he's like, by the way, I was just thinking about you niggas. So let me go ahead and throw this at you. So that was what they're doing there. So nothing for reparations, nothing there. He doesn't have the time, doesn't have the ability. Too hard to do. Can't get that through Congress. But base pipes, oh, we don't even need to vote for that. We don't even need to vote. Don't even have to, all of a sudden, where are the Biden butt kissers to talk about, oh, you can't get anything through Congress? This didn't require a vote, but this wasn't hard to get through. You don't hear any about filibustering and wrangling. All of a sudden, all the excuses that the Biden base heads were giving out, now all of a sudden you can't use any of those excuses. I know I'm hurting your feelings. I know I'm hurting your feelings because you were planning on this lasting a while. Every time y'all turn around, he's doing something else to make it look worse. Every time you turn around, it is getting worse. Are we having fun yet? We got over 600 of y'all in here by my count right now. I shouldn't say y'all. We have about 600 of you in here by my count. So thank you very much for joining us here for another edition of my Twitter space for it. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to wrap things up here in a few moments. But definitely, if you haven't looked at my profile page there, you can see the links to my YouTube channel. So definitely, if you haven't subscribed to that, you want to go ahead and do that. If you're new here, you've been missing a lot for the last decade. Go ahead and see what other people are talking about and get up to speed on that. Because this is what changed the national discussion. The whole reason why we're having this right now, just understand a decade ago under Obama, we couldn't have had this discussion. We could have been talking, but it was just with a few of us. But we've been steadily, consistently on the drumbeat of this all this time. And this is why now it can be an issue. And I just want you to understand, if Biden feels like he's only going to get one term in office, just understand he's going to try to wreck shop as much as he can on his way out the door. So we went from Obama phones to Biden base pipes. This is where we're at now. We went from Obama phones to Biden base pipes. I want to find out, is there anybody out there who is still supporting Biden? Is there anybody who is reading this, seeing this, or whatever, and you are still supporting him? You are just unfazed, that you think that there's something we're getting wrong, that maybe there's something that we just don't understand or something that we just don't see about this, and that if we would just look at it the right way, we would understand that this is acceptable. Because I didn't see anybody saying that the Asians need more cocaine. The Asians need more safe places for cocaine. We need to do something specifically for them. When they said doing something specifically for Asians, it was to protect them physically and to give them financial resources. That's what the Asians got. Black folk are literally, well, hey, you need a base pipe, need some condoms, need some abortions. That's what we get. We're sitting up here saying we need the same resources you give everybody else. And they come back to us, oh, we ain't got any money for resources. We gave it to everybody else, but we did bring you some money for abortions. Matter of fact, we got free rides, as a matter of fact. Do you need a ride down to the abortion clinic? Oh, you got twins. Oh, good. We can get a 2-for-1. Yeah, we can go ahead and get that taken care of. That's no problem. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. If you think that white supremacists don't have a sense of humor about these things, you're dead ass wrong. This is what happens when you have a sick sense of humor. This isn't accidental. This is actually one of the things they sit back there behind closed doors and giggle about. This is about having a sick sense of humor. Hey, they said that they want us to do something specifically for them. We brought something specifically for them. More drugs. Hey, hey, hey. You can see wrinkled old Biden, old senile Biden, and old wrinkled old Mitch McConnell. Now there's something that they can share a toast to while sipping some brandy. Hey, don't worry, we're going to get plenty of drugs out there for them. I want you all to understand we are constantly on their minds. That's why we have to constantly be on our agenda, because we are constantly on these people's minds. They are always sitting around thinking to themselves, how can we undermine black folk and make it look like we didn't do anything? Now, do you realize how dense you have to be to see something like this and then say, okay, well, I mean, yeah, that ain't great, but it ain't that bad. Do you realize how dense you have to be at that point? Anybody who's looking at this and still making excuses, basically what you're saying is just, let the white supremacists just come have me. Let them just come take me. I don't care what's going on. Let them just have me now. And the old heads, that was one thing for them to say that. They're just looking for a peaceful death. For you younger people, you better be completely aware of this and completely informed about this. You can't afford to have ignorance. That's not something you can afford to have. You can't afford to be ignorant of this. Not with this many of these people still circulating out there. This many of them and their acolytes, by the way, because they're acolytes and heirs, or the ones who've been co-opted. Remember Kamala Harris? Take a look at how quickly that heifer flipped. Did you see how fast she flipped? It took her 2.3 seconds. She was sitting there at one debate talking about, well, Joe Biden has been accused of sexually violating some females, and I believed him. As soon as he named her his nominee for vice president, didn't hear her talk about them chicks ever again. Just that quickly. I believed them. Now they need to shut up. I'm going to be vice president. So yes, girls, I believe you. Now shut the hell up so I can get to this White House. Okay, Trenton.
Yes. The Biden sexuals, or as you promptly named them, the Biden baseheads. I was listening to Tariq's live, and Tariq found a caller that was completely supporting Joe Biden. And you know his typical response was, "Well, at least it's better than Trump." And I was just thinking, like, so you would rather have a sneaky white supremacist do all these undermining things, and he's completely show you that he's not going to do anything for you, rather than Trump, who possibly hasn't done anything bad specifically to black community other than just being racist.
Well, here's the real thing. It doesn't require you to support either one of them. It really doesn't. You're not required to say, let me choose the lesser of two evils. You can actually condemn Trump and Biden. It doesn't actually require you to sacrifice your integrity. Here's the issue. You got to have some integrity before you can sacrifice it.
And that's it.
And a lot of these people, they sacrificed theirs a long damn time ago.
And that's the next thing he said too. Well, he's the lesser of two evils. Last time I checked, evil is still evil. And by the way, I didn't vote for either of them because they're both pieces of crap anyway. But how can you be this stupid to the point where you completely say the same thing over and over again? That's what the caller is basically saying. At least it's better than Trump, and it's the lesser of two evils. They're both racist. You don't have to vote for them. It's infuriating.
Yeah, they're throwing out a slogan with no rationale behind it. If
None.
all you can say is he's not Biden, okay, how is that a benefit to us? Okay, he's not Biden. He's also not good. So,
Exactly.
or at least I'm sorry, he's not Trump. Okay, but that doesn't mean he's better. At best, it just means he's not Trump. Okay, but if he's going to do the same thing, so unless you can tell us what he's going to do that's going to be better, you haven't actually given us an argument for voting for him or for supporting that because we're going to have to live under that. Let's be very, very clear. You're going to have to live under that. When they're sitting up here doing this kind of stuff right here, these are the neighborhoods you'll have to live in. This is where you'll have to be. This is where that kind of thing is going to occur. And they're going to always make sure they treat the white side of town differently than the black side of town. So you can't just sit up and give out some empty headed response like you're sitting in church. Simple minded responses where folks haven't thought things over. Or here's the other thing you all got to keep in mind. What you're listening to in a lot of cases is you're listening to people who have an agenda that is in no way black centric. It is in no way Afrocentric. What we really need to do is start asking these people, because it's really good. It's good that people are asking things like, okay, you know, are you, foundational? Are you descendants of slaves? That's good to ask that to find out if there's an immigrant agenda at work. But folks need to ask, hey, what about the LGBT thing? That one's usually not very far away. How about feminism? That one's
Oh
usually
yes.
not very far away. So there's other questions of these ardent Biden supporters that would be very good to ask because it's like, okay, he's doing nothing but raining hell on black people, and yet you're still supporting him. So there must be something he's actually offering that you're interested in, but you don't want to tell us here in this forum. You don't want to come out and say what it is. So what is it what is the bone they're giving you? What are the 30 pieces of silver that they're offering you that is worth you overlooking all of this anti-black behavior, this obvious anti-black behavior? Well, there is anti-black, but I'm LGBT also, so Biden be supporting me. Is okay. So you think as long as you are being granted the particular type of sexual access you want, at least you feel like they're supporting that. Oh, okay.
Pretty
So
much.
symbolism. And remember, even that's symbolic because that's not
Yeah.
literal. Black gays don't get any of the benefits that white gays get. They don't get any of the benefits. They don't get any of the perks. They don't get any of the protections, but they've got proximity. So they feel some vicarious satisfaction, but they don't get any of those protections
And that's what I don't understand.
whatsoever.
That's what I don't understand about the black LGBTQ community is that eventually they're gonna break you too. They do not care about you. They only use you as a mascot to their agendas, and when their agendas are met, they discard you like trash.
Well, I mean, we've had that for the longest time, though, brother. The whole thing right now is there are two types of black people: the black people who want empowerment and the black people who want proximity. And that's literally what we're dealing with right now. Who is it who wants to be empowered? And who is it who really just wants to be close to the dominant society? And they're going to sell the rest of us out. Biden and friends, there's a reason why the Democrats keep working the same strategy all the damn time. What did Biden say? He said, I want to just go meet black folk. When he was asked here about why is it his black support is declining, it's because I haven't gotten out there
Or
and met
or or
people.
or how about if you don't vote for me, you ain't black? Like, really? Aren't
Well,
you
I
the
mean,
same person? Sorry.
since then though, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, he's the same guy who's doing all this other stuff. But since then though, when he was told what the problem was, he said the solution is I need to get out here and meet more people. I need to go out here and go to more of these communities. In other words, more photo ops. Because what they believe, and for a certain segment of black folk, it's true that as long as he shows up and shakes their hand and acknowledges their existence, that's all they're looking for.
And
That's
that's the
it.
sad. That's what's frustrating. Like, even today in Tariq's space, there's this woman who tried to come in and try to say that Joe Rogan shouldn't pay black businesses because of what he said. It should be distributed amongst black people. I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me the same white people who hate our guts use our bodies for everything for their money, but they still continue to hate us? Why shouldn't Joe Rogan compensate us for his anti-black racism, which is clearly true of what he believes to be true? So why shouldn't we be compensated for his racism? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you have another agenda at work and these things don't really bother you because you got something else that you want. If you're from an immigrant class,
Right.
you're willing to overlook three strikes because you have something else you want. If your real priority is LGBT, you'll overlook whatever happens to black folk because you have another agenda at work. You're willing to do that. For us, that's front and center. You can't dismiss that because we don't
Right.
have any other agenda running. This is the only one we got. And this is how they put them in the trick bag. Nobody else lets you sit up here and play the feminism card in their community.
Right.
Nobody else sits up here and lets you play that. You got to come with them to them with the resources, with the tangibles, with the benefits, with the
Like the
protections.
Asians, the Latinos, and everybody else.
Yeah, you got to give them the protections of the whole 9 yards. Remember, the Asians, think about this for a few moments. So Asians got protections now, and that thing specifically said for Asian Americans. So much for I can't
Yes.
specifically do anything for black folk. You can specifically do something for Asians, ain't that right? Kamala, sometimes I'm Asian when I need to be Harris. All of a sudden, I'm just telling my brother, these are sick insults now.
And
These
it's
are sick jokes.
yes. I remember I saw that article talking about him passing out the crack pipes. I thought it was like an SNL skit or something from Dave Chappelle, but I actually looked up the article. He's serious.
Oh, I thought it was a joke too. I was I thought it was satire. I was like, okay, y'all been reading the Onion or something. I can't believe you're passing this nonsense around. And then I just got a few minutes of time, and I said, but too many people are saying this. Let me go look it up. Let me go look it up so I can debunk it. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh no, you the one don't know. You don't even know the half. He's like, by the way, I'm trying to see if I can expand this a little bit. I ain't trying to give you a crack pipes. I just want to make sure you got something to smoke with. What? Okay. So it's just now we're playing semantics. Like I said, this is a sick joke. Now we're playing semantics again. Underserved, minority communities. Oh, I'm not handing out crack pipes. I'm handing out smoking kits. Okay, what's in the smoking kit? Because I see a little glass pipe in here. So what are you talking about? Well, that's not a crack pipe. It's a glass pipe. It's a smoking. Don't you understand? This is a smoking pipe. No, we don't do crack pipes. Don't put that on us. We don't do crack pipes. We just do glass pipes. So everything. Understand something. This is a sick joke at this point. It really, really is.
He's basically giving us the middle finger right now, saying, "Okay, since you blacks are not voting for me anymore, I might as well just go all the way and just be full white supremacist."
And I said that last year too. I said that last year. I was talking about with that Chris Cillizza thing, where all of a sudden the liberals are talking about woke, and every time they say woke, they talk about black people. So at this point
Yes.
right now, the Democrats basically, I did a program about this last year, where the Democrats are just easing their way back to the right. And next thing you know, all these right wing things. Remember, I played the clip about Jen Psaki saying Joe Biden has never supported defunding the police.
Right.
So she's talking about, oh, that's the reason that you should vote for Democrats in the midterms because Joe Biden has never supported defunding the police. So
Correct.
yeah, I mean, it's not accidental anymore. So they're just doing as much as they can now, but that's good too. That
Right.
is good too because I know a lot of you lose faith sometimes, and I understand. Sometimes some of the silliness that people are going to attempt to condone or explain away just absolutely can drive you insane. And I get it. But I want you to
Yeah.
understand that there's only so much of this you can do and just this steady drumbeat of it before you completely lose all rational credibility. There's only so much of this you can do. And Biden and Harris and the Democrats, every time you turn around, they're doing something of this nature. And eventually, you've just done so much of it that this is all you can be remembered for. You were just flopping around and flailing around like a fish, and everything you did, you can't even hide it well anymore. That's what happens when you get desperate. You can't even hide it well anymore. So
Right.
this is where we are now. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah. So yeah, just keep doing your thing. Being the new black media, Tariq Nasheed, Professor Black Truth, and yourself. Be one. Peace.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here, brother. Like I say, definitely a whole bunch of folks are going to get their feelings hurt in this regard. They need to. It's been a long time coming. We told folks this kind of thing was going to happen. And here it is. Here it is. And this is just the latest in a line of things. This is just the latest in a line of things. It's going to keep going, by the way. It's going to keep going. For any of you who are still supporting Biden, can you imagine Biden on the stage in 2024? Because he said he wants to run for reelection. So get ready for the hits to keep coming. Can you imagine him on the stage in 2024, sitting across from Trump, sitting across from Ron DeSantis, sitting across from somebody who is actually lucid and clear and actually rational? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine Ron DeSantis with his one liners ready to go about base pipe Biden? Can you imagine that? You can sit up here and tell yourselves these are right wingers, racists, or whatever you want to. Can you imagine Biden sitting up there on stage trying to explain why it was perfectly rational to pay for handing out base pipes and everything else? Have you thought that over for a moment? Okay, you hate Trump. Got it. You call this a better alternative? Can you imagine what will happen in 2024? Can you imagine what's going to happen in 2022? How many Democrats are going to want to sit there and back this? Who's going to be sitting there saying that? I don't even know if Alexandria Ocasio Cortez would be sitting there like, well, yes, I support handing out base pipes because everybody should be allowed to smoke in peace. You should be allowed to light up in the comfort and safety of your own home. I don't know. She may go for it. I will tell you, I wouldn't want to be on her side of the aisle trying to defend this. I wouldn't want to be there. That'd be a bad spot to be in. Can you imagine trying to defend this? It won't look bad, it'll look terrible. It'll look awful. And a bunch of you who supported this and voted for this and went along with it, just be aware you were warned. There are a whole bunch of you who are hoping that he wouldn't do extra dumb things like this because you were hoping you'd be able to at least have plausible deniability. Y'all, he didn't even let you all make it halfway through his term. In just the first year of his term, he made everybody who voted for him look like straight idiots. Are you still supporting? Is it still better than Trump? And by the way, I'm no Trump supporter either. You don't have to support either one of them. I don't have to support evil or malevolent. I don't have to do that. But by the way, have you figured out some way to rationalize this away and make it okay yet? because 2022 is here and 2024 is coming sooner than you think. For those of you just joining us now, we've been talking about Base Pipe Biden here. They got some federal program where they want to help subsidize people getting these smoking kits. They want to subsidize that now. So we've gone from mass incarceration to mass smoking. They call this smoking. That's not good either. You use that term for more innocuous things. This isn't innocuous. This is dangerous. But they've gone from sitting up here locking people up for smoking crack to now, hey, you need some help paying for them base pipes? That's how you know white folk are involved. That's how you know there's a bunch of white folk you have to arrest for it. When they start talking about, oh, we don't arrest people for that no more, that tells you, oh, that means there's a bunch of white people doing it. Okay, you should have said that in the first place. There's a bunch of white folk doing it. Oh, okay. That clears it up. All right. Now we understand. There's a bunch of white folk doing it. Got it. Got it. We got over 600 of y'all listening here right now. So I want to thank you all for joining us here. This is my second Twitter space. Gone pretty good here. Got a few more ideas in mind I want to discuss with the family here. So I'll be doing that with you all here next time. Make sure you click on the profile page on my Twitter here. You can go ahead and click the link for YouTube. If you are not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, the Black channel, you definitely want to do that. If you want to see what the new Black media is and how we became what we are today, there's the archive for you, definitely available. So go ahead and check that out as well. I want to thank you all for joining us here this evening. We will be doing this again soon. And until next time.